Explorers, welcome back to the Starfield Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with Dave Chaffins, and Dave, today we are taking on another character, another companion, the sexy cowboy man.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty excited to talk about this character. You know what I mean? It's my favorite voice of video games.
Are you doing a Sam Coe impression, or are you now a wrestler?
I mean, a little bit.
Okay, so this
is the best. This is the best impression that I can do.
If you were a wrestler,
it's kind of more like Will Arnett, though. So sorry about that.
It's a little Will Arnett, yeah. When he's trying to be Batman, where he's doing like Lego Batman voice.
Pretty much. That's like my skill range, my vocal range is Will Arnett trying to be Batman, which sounds like a person doing a bad voice for a character. So I sound like an impression of a person doing a bad voice.
Right.
Correct.
Right. I'm Batman. I'm Lego Batman. Watch my Lego show.
I'm Lego Batman.
We're gonna smash Legos on my Lego show. Anyway, that's a fun show, the Lego show that he also hosts. Anyway, we're not talking about Legos or Batman today. We're talking about Sam Coe. And as with all of these characters, interesting, very different from the other characters. But Dave and I were talking in the pre-show. We wish there was a little bit more depth to these characters because you only get to know them so much until you run through their quest lines, you do their other side quest lines, you learn about other characters they're connected to, all of that stuff. But it still leaves us asking a lot of questions about like, well, what else is there to know about them? So in today's episode, we're going to go over everything that we do know and ask some questions about maybe some of the stuff that we don't know. But Dave, where do we start with Sam?
Well, like every person that's Coe for Sam Coe, I want to start with kind of his family. Of why everywhere you go, they're like, oh, it's the illustrious Sam Coe. Oh,
when you visit California,
right?
Is that a California accent?
Oh yeah, man, what's up?
Hey.
It's good to see you, Sam Coe.
Sam Coe. What's up, Sam Coe?
So the reason that he is famous is he is another Nepo baby in Constellation. It seems like that we're feeling Constellation up with Nepo babies at this point. They're all just super well connected. And nobody is there by the dirt on their sleeve. I feel like I'm starting this off on the wrong foot. But let's talk about Solomon Coe a little bit. Solomon Coe is the ancient ancestor of... ancient as in like 200 years or so, of Sam Coe, and is the founder of one of the biggest cities in the settled systems.
Yeah, Solomon is an interesting dude. Like, he helped with the whole exploration of different places to go. He was part of the UC early on, kind of broke out on his own as an explorer and found a planet and ended up founding a actual like city. Like city founder explorer. This is like, I don't know, Lewis and Clark.
It's interesting because this is one of the few sections, or one of the few, I guess, lore pieces where it talks about people from Earth with Earth backgrounds going out into space and what they did. So it's like people that were born on Earth, raised on Earth, then went to space, then did some stuff. Like, it's one of the few like legacy people that we learn about that actually go out there and make the impact. It's said that Solomon Coe is originally from Wyoming and was an astrophysicist and worked on spaceships. Pretty much designed them. And those designs were actually used to be the evacuation ships that the citizens of Earth used when they all had to leave because some scientist done goofed it,
Yeah, we talked about that, all the experiments on the moon and how that totally destroyed the atmosphere on Earth and all of that. So he was a very important person during a very catastrophic and, dangerous time period, I guess you could say. You have all of these people, only a very small percentage of the population of Earth survive, get onto these ships that he helps design, and then head off to the stars to go find new homes. And after that's done, after the designing of all the ships, he was actually important in the exploration and the discovery of a very specific planet. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, he was integral in discovering Cheyenne, which he named after the capital of Wyoming. He was one of the settlers. I think he was through one of the like initiatives that it was the Centaurus Proclamation that was issued to the United Colonies. And so that was in 2161, I think. And he was kind of like sent out to just explore and claim stuff. Like they were just like, it was manifest destiny out there. And you know what? You're going to go out there and put your little stake in some land and find it. And he found the Cheyenne system, which he felt comfortable in. And then landed on the planet Aquila and founded Aquila City. Do you say Aquila or Aquila?
I say Aquila.
Aquila.
It's more of an E. It's like a E.
I like Aquila.
Aquila City.
Aquila. Hey, living in Aquila City is it's a real Aquila City, you know? Lots of Aquillas in there. Uh-huh. Anyways,
you've had better jokes.
I've had better. There's been better stabs at this for sure. I think Solomon Coe is incredibly interesting because like one of my favorite scenes in any sci-fi media is actually at the beginning of the reboot of Star Trek. They show this. I'm taking you for a little tangent here.
Like original Star Trek, like
the reboot with
the reboot of the original Star Trek.
The reboot of the original Star Trek, the one that came out in the 2000s.
Oh, okay. I got you. Not like when the first season, if I'm probably wrong about this, but the first season of the original Star Trek, and then I believe they went on hiatus and then it got greenlit again. I thought maybe you were talking about something like that, but
Chris Pine
got it. The movie right. Reboot with J.J. Abrams and Chris Pine and got it.
J.J. Abrams. Yeah. J.J. Abrams.
Got it.
I think about the scene in the beginning where he's riding it's kind of a convertible and he's trying to drive it off the cliff. The cops are chasing whatever, but it's set in like the fields. I forgot exactly where Captain Kirk is from. Not Star Trek lore.
Wyoming or something.
Anyways, but they're going around, and one of the scenes that they show is actually them like building a ship in the middle of a field, because we know like the Midwest and out there, Indiana, you're talking about Ohio. Like there's a lot of just like empty land that's either just like farmland or forest. Like not a whole lot going on. And so to see these massive construction projects and to see these massive ships being built, like, I just think that that's such an interesting, like sci-fi futuristic thing to think about, and putting it into those settings of like, oh yeah, this is what we would use this for if we have the capabilities to build these ships and have these things. And for somebody like Solomon Coe to go from that setting, to go from Wyoming and the life he had, and find Aquila and get Aquila City and to go and do that, and having the environment be kind of similar, has that kind of like deserty feel, kind
of Wild West, like, and I think you're onto something here. It's one of those things you obviously notice when you go visit Aquila City, when you see the Freestar Rangers. It's all got this very Western kind of sheen to it, but that goes way back to Solomon Coe and his own background, being from Wyoming, being somebody who is now reaching out, like you said, manifest destiny, searching the stars for new places to settle, going into the parts unknown, founding new cities. The whole thing is very Wild West from its inception.
Right. He watched a lot of Yellowstone before he got on the ship to go to outer space. But that's the inspiration that it carries. And it's the first, like, it's one of the I wouldn't even say it's the first. It's one of the very few examples in the game of saying, okay, here's a culture point these people came from. And then we're taking that and we're setting it loose into the stars and shooting it over to this planet. And you can trace it back.
Right.
And there's like a lore description of like, oh, he's from Wyoming. He named the system after the capital of Wyoming. He loves cowboys. Like, he loves that frontier vibe. He's an explorer. Like, all of that makes sense. And so it goes to it goes into detail and explains why Aquila City is the way that it is. You know, it's not just Tatooine, it's more of kind of a Western town.
Right. Yeah, if you just stop at like, oh, desert planet Tatooine, you're kind of missing the point. Tatooine is not the same thing as the Cheyenne system and all, like the Volii system, Cheyenne, Aquila City, all of that. He also was important in founding the Freestar Collective as well, because he leaves the UC, he founds this new city, he negotiates some deals with some other locations, and basically that's the origins of the Freestar Collective altogether, which makes sense why he's like this founding father figure, why you see statues of him up in town square. And transitioning back to Sam, why he's carrying around a lot of baggage, because there's a lot of expectations. It's like you're coming from this very important family. I would imagine that a generation or a few generations after, say, America's founding fathers, that if you were of the Washington line or Adams or Jefferson or whoever, that there's probably a lot of expectations on your shoulders. So you come from these great original founders, and people are going to expect a lot from you.
I mean, when you look at a character, this is a historical character like Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee married into the Washington family, and people had a lot of expectations on, like, that was the 1850s. It was, 80, 90 years after American independence. Like, George Washington had been dead for a while, but there were still expectations on that family of being kind of the first family of America. And so, like, that carries with you of as you go along. People still think about the Kennedys all the time. And I mean, JFK's been dead for years and years and years. Like, there is still a family. There's still expectations placed upon the children of these people. I mean, we're talking about Nepo babies and Constellation. This is the ultimate. The ultimate. I mean, maybe Cora, but that's Sam for sure.
Yeah.
The ultimate right here.
Right. So he's raised, basically as part of Aquila City's almost royalty, even though they don't have royalty. He takes a job as a Freestar Ranger. He figures out that this isn't what he thought it would be, and not for the reason that you might expect. He has a problem with the Freestar Rangers being judge, jury, and executioner on, out in the wilderness of space in these remote locations. They don't have time or the structure to follow what would be typical law procedures. Somebody arrests you, you get taken in, you are given representation in a trial, all of that. They don't have time. They don't have the resources for all of that. So the Freestar Rangers have a lot of, ability to do things that can be kind of shady. And he's a more moral figure than that. He feels like that's wrong, even for him to have that kind of power. And that becomes a major issue.
Yeah, and I think it's part of that comparison to the Midwest, the West, like in old America with the U.S. Marshals, of going out. They could only touch the most dangerous things. Like they could only tackle giant, obvious issues. And Sam is the kind of guy, you talk to him and you're around him, that he wants to find a path forward for everyone. He wants to make sure and take the time and know that his decision is going to be, effective in a way that nobody is going to get hurt. Nobody is going to die. Like, he wants the path of least resistance for peace, pretty much. And that's not something normally that the Rangers are 100% interested in because of their independence.
Right. So connected also to the Rangers is his past relation, his main squeeze for a while, and the mother of his daughter Cora, Lillian Hart, who is also an interesting character. We come to find out that she was a Freestar Ranger before he was, and he was living this kind of shadier side of his younger adult life, and got caught in like a conflict with some contraband, and she was impressed with his piloting skills, and so she takes him in, helps him out by saying the contraband was lost in the scuffle or whatever, and then eventually convinces him to join the Freestar Rangers, where they worked basically hand in hand together, and their friendship and romantic partnership kind of blossomed at that point and kind of grew on the job, basically. It's kind of an interesting way for that to develop.
Yeah, this isn't a Jim and Pam kind of situation. This is a a complicated rapport. Like, I'm not sure if part of the reason maybe that they didn't have a working HR department in the Freestar Rangers. And then he got into all this, marriage and whatever. And he's like, this is really complex. This is a strange way when somebody's like, oh, how did you meet your wife? It's like, well, I was smuggling an operation and she thought I was pretty hot. And so she had to look the other way and pretty much deconstruct the entire Freestar Rangers like mythos and value for me to be in it, because technically I'm you start going down that rabbit hole of an explanation. Like, let me tell you something, as my armchair therapist right here, this relationship was doomed to fail. Right. That's built on, they didn't meet on Tinder. They didn't meet well, their meet cute was weird.
They clearly have different ideological cores in the way they handle things. Like, I don't think he would have, had he already been working for the Freestar Rangers and the roles were flipped, I don't think he would have let her off the hook and just thrown away the contraband. I think he probably would have been too morally obligated to follow through with it. Even though she was nice and he thought she was impressive and attractive, all of that stuff, he probably would have gone through with it. But since the roles were flipped, she kind of has this mentality of the end result, like the ends justify the means. Even when she has good intentions, like the Freestar needs to stand up and do things in order to combat bad things going on, and she continues to be on this journey, she still seems to make these kinds of decisions along the way that Sam is not cool with. Oh, and just a side note here, I'm not 100% sure that they were married. A lot of the references are to past lovers and things like that. So they may have been married or maybe not. I don't know that I've seen confirmation determining that for sure. So just to put that out there. So they end up together. They end up having a daughter. Sam decides to leave the Freestar Rangers for a few reasons. One, the job is kind of all consuming, but secondly, he's got moral issues with it. Lillian isn't able to let go of the job being a priority. And that's at least the implications I think we get here, because when we meet Sam, he is the sole provider and parent for Cora. And so a lot of questions come up. Well, why aren't they sharing custody? How come Cora hasn't really seen her mom? We come to find out that she's been communicating with her mom, got her to join a book club, and that leads into the whole other side quest thing that you do with that. But I think the core of it is that Lillian just couldn't let the job go. And it's ironic because, and what do you think about this, Dave? Because she has problems with Sam bringing Cora with him to explore for Constellation, but she's not willing to let the Freestar Rangers be kind of a less of an important thing in order to have Cora in her life. So it's this weird, like, she wants things from Sam that she's not willing to commit to herself. Sam's not willing to commit to not being part of Constellation. Both of them are stuck with the ideology and their specific goals. And it seems like Cora's just along for the ride.
Yeah, I feel like that Lillian is the ultimate Monday morning quarterback. And when I say that, that means after it's already done, you've got comments about a football game that was played on Sunday that you didn't play in. And that seems like what Lillian is doing here. She wants to have a relationship with Cora, but she doesn't want to be a parent to Cora.
Right.
Like she doesn't
but she still wants to comment on how Cora is being parented without committing to parenting Cora. Right. I'm sure there are lots of people who are listening to this who have exes or divorcees or whatever with kids who have been through similar kinds of things. And they're like, oh, let me tell you, this feels very real. No, it feels like a very real kind of situation where both parents have different goals, different ways of parenting, and there's going to be conflict there. So well, as my ultimate boyfriend, Sam is always right when it comes to this relationship, because we don't need her butting in on my character Grandpa Gus Galacto getting with Mr. Sam Coe. You know what I mean? Grandpa and Sam are an item.
Oh yeah, I mean he's an item with everybody. I mean he's a
sexy
a real man about town. Yeah, he's a real killer. You know,
right? Real a killer, like the city.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So some other details here. You might be wondering, okay, so how does this time frame work? Sam joined Constellation in 2327, so it's just a few years before we show up. He's obviously not an older person. So do we have an actual, I didn't look at this specifically before doing the show. Do we have an actual like date of birth? I don't remember.
That's one of the things is like, you have like dates of discovery and like organizational joinings, but nobody has birth certificates.
Yeah, there's no date of birth. Like, we don't know. And I think we don't know that for a lot of these characters. I would assume that he's in his 30s, maybe. I don't know. Well, I mean, you know, it's also a nice way to get away from it from video games. Like, was it? They had the date of birth for the Cyberpunk main character, and then they were like originally 27 or something, and then they changed it up and then de-aged them 4 years or whatever, and people were very mad that they got weird
de-aged in date of birth.
Yeah,
but it kind of avoids that of being like, oh, this isn't what a, you know, because what if Sam is like 45? You know,
I mean, it could be.
Like, what if Sam is like 28 though?
I mean, well,
young
Cora,
you know?
Yeah, Cora, he must have had Cora really, really young.
Well, I mean, he was busy smuggling, and then he met his lover, and then like the connecting tissue of all of this is a little flimsy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We don't know about all these specifics. If you have found anything that leads to insight on this, let us know, because we haven't found it yet. But maybe it's out there.
How old is Cora? That's a great question.
I mean, she's an avid reader. She's a smart kid. She doesn't seem like she's a teenager yet. I would guess she's somewhere between like 9 and 11.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking like 13.
You think she's 13?
I'm thinking 13. Yeah.
Maybe. A lot of girls by 13 have already hit their growth spurt, so I'm just assuming she would have been like taller, but maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I've got a 13-year-old boy. He's getting tall. Anyway, I'm sure people are enraptured with this
and read a bunch of books
with this discussion. Yes, it's strange, but he does that.
Very odd.
So other fun things that we know about Sam Coe. He is voiced by Elias Toufexis. Is that how you pronounce the last name?
I think it's Elias Tufo.
Oh man, super French. That is a French name if I've ever seen one. But
he has a particular voice when he talks. And it's impossible to imitate, but every role he's in kind of sounds like this.
Right. And so you might think, oh, his voice sounds familiar. Well, let's just go back down his IMDb page, because he was in Star Trek Discovery, Blood of Zeus, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Pluto, Starfield, Star Trek Resurgence, Call of Duty Mobile, Gotham Knights, Saints Row. Like, there's just a bunch of things you've probably heard of. Back for Blood, Blade Runner, Black Lotus, Death Stranding, The Expanse, The Walking Dead Survivors game. He's been in a lot of stuff, and I really love to back to Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell. It just keeps scrolling back. He's been doing this for a long time. I love going back and finding the first thing that voice actors do. He was a part of Brilliant, played a character named Adam in 2004. What happens when you don't remember having been on vacation? I don't know. Probably not a great movie, but whatever. And some other just kind of like other stuff. I mean, lots of actors take all sorts of different roles. Not all of them are going to be hits. But then you end up with things like Blade the series. He was on Blade the series, Stargate Atlantis, Rainbow Six Vegas 2. Do you remember that? That was a classic.
I do remember playing that. Yep.
Deus Ex Human Revolution. He's been a part of some bangers.
That's what I know him from, is the Deus Ex series. And then when I saw him, I didn't see him, but I just heard him in The Expanse, and I was like, oh crap, it's the Deus Ex guy.
Yeah, Adam Jensen. Yeah, he's Adam Jensen in Deus Ex. So yeah, Fallout 4. He was Cog in Far Harbor. Grand Zealot Brian Richter in the Fall Harbor DLC. He's been in a lot of stuff. Lots of stuff. Spider-Man, the Spider-Man video game. He did a bunch of voices. Lots of cool things. So if you recognize him, that's where it's from. But outside of the stuff that we've discussed, I mean, we know what his personality is like. If you've played the game, you've had him on your ship, you've heard him, you've talked with him, you've been running around with him. That's about it. Like, I mean, clearly he's kind of a upstanding individual, but he also has some dilemmas as a parent. And we're going to talk about this when we get back from the break, about how he's parenting Korra, especially in relation to the Unity and the decision about going through the Unity. Seems like, I don't know, seems like one of those things a lot of people have debated. Seems like a rough thing. But why don't we take a quick break and we will be right back. We got to go thank our patrons. Don't go anywhere. All right, here we are. This is the middle of the show. This is where we get to thank our patrons, including our Space Lord, Commander Marcus Shepard, who gets a shout out every week. Thank you so much for those of you who have taken the time and the money in order to support this endeavor, to keep it going. We're keeping the show going. There's a bunch of stuff that we still haven't covered yet, and hopefully we get some DLC later this year, some new story stuff, some expansions to the lore, and maybe some of the answers to the questions that we've been posing. So we'll be here for a while. Thank you for your support. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/StarfieldLorecast. Check out all the different tiers. You can get ad-free episodes, t-shirts, and stickers. You can join us for the patron chats, all sorts of fun stuff. Another way that you can help us is to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you leave a 5-star review, we'll read it out on a future episode of the show. You can also rate the show on Spotify or whatever podcast you listen to this on. You can share it with your friends, all of that kind of stuff. All of it is extremely helpful. So thank you for taking the time to do any and all of that. All right, let's move on with the rest of the show. Dave, we are back.
Here we are.
We're back to, this is the discussion portion. This is what we save for the second half. I know you've got some questions. What do you want to cover? What do you want to cover first?
I want to kind of talk about, digging into the Coe of the matter.
To digging into the Coe of the matter. Every time Coe shows up as a last name, it's like short for company in my mind. I'm like, oh, that's
Sam Coe. Yeah,
Sam
welcome to Sam Coe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the Korra company. You. That's the that's the Solomon company.
So Sam has this opinion of the Freestar Rangers that kind of establish it as a group that's good, but not like, he likes it when you join the Freestar Rangers. He's invested in you joining the Freestar Rangers, but he personally doesn't want anything to do with it. And my question is, what problems do like are the Freestar Rangers good? Are they a good thing, or are they like just mercenaries that are giving opinions, Right.
I think that from Sam's perspective, he would probably describe it as this: the intentions for the Freestar Rangers are good. They have good intentions. Reduce crime in the system, make it safer for settlers, especially on these planets that haven't been completely settled. There's a lot of wild wasteland, wacky wasteland out there.
Woolly wasteland out there.
And so their intentions are good, but the methods are the problem. So he's a fan of people getting involved with them, of people, especially good people, who are trying to revise the Rangers, trying to keep them doing what is actually supposed to be good. But he himself has a hard time being that role, and maybe even just the temptations to go outside the bounds of what he thinks is right from being in that role. I think there's kind of a line there. Like they're not just carte blanche, like just they're not white knights. They're not all good all the time, but at least the goals of the organization are good, and he would like to see that improved. That's my take on it. What do you think?
To me, it feels like that nobody. It depends on where you are. If the Freestar Rangers come and help, the Freestar Rangers seem like the government, they are the government appointed mercenaries that do business for the government. Like, if you want actual protection from, spacers on your farm and you're in the Freestar Collective, like, it's got to get pretty serious before they're coming out there.
Right.
Like it's like you're in a really bad neighborhood and you call the police and the police are busy. Like that's the way that the Freestar Rangers feel
from like a citizen perspective, from getting out and meeting a lot of the Free Star Rangers when you go through the quest line, it seems like most of them bring their personalities into the role. So there is like a code of conduct, but it's really just like whoever comes to visit you gets an opinion on what you are and what you're doing. So like the guy from Neon is pretty much over it. Like he's kind of like, yeah, this is Neon, man. It's kind of fucked up out here. It's kind of wacky. And so I do what I can, but mostly I just try not to kill people.
Right.
Well, that's the perspective, as opposed to, you know, the guy that's on the medical, I forgot the name of it. That's, you know, the medical place where all the medical stuff happens.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I can't, the name's dropping out of my brain right now, but yes. I get the sense that they clearly understand that they are stretched too thin, that they only have resources for the things that they can have, the most important things out there in the moment. That's why part of why it makes sense that you go up to the machine and you got a whole list of like, well, here's some other stuff you could take on if you want, right? It's not like that stuff is all getting like assigned out and constantly coming up with new things every day. Like, oh, the other Rangers took care of these. Here's the new list. It's more of just like, well, we're stretched thin, but if you got some time, you can go take on some of this other stuff. And to your point, it seems like the things that get more priority are things that are more important to the governmental system for Freestar, rather than the things that the Rangers necessarily would think would be most important, right? If the board decides the Freestar Rangers need to act and they need to go do this, then they go do it. And we know how that works out. We know the board is not the most ethically forward focused group in the galaxy. They all have their own, I mean, they're all wealthy, important people who want to maintain their power and their wealth. So the Freestar Rangers become kind of an extension of that.
Right. I think it's also hard to get fired from that job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you've really got to screw the pooch. Like you've really
like gotta, actually literally screw a pooch, and then maybe they'll fire you.
Or like murder someone for no reason in broad daylight. Like if you mess up a job as a Freestar Ranger that has like, you know, you're just trying to help out, nobody's going to come out. Nobody's going to be like, well, Ranger Dave, you goofed it. And so we're going to have to put you on suspension for 2 weeks. Like nobody's going to do that because there's not that many of them and they're so thinly spread.
Or if they do, it's a stern talking to. But we still need you out there, so get out there and just do a better job next time. It's almost like being a teacher in the United States. Like there's so much demand for teachers, but so few because they're treated so poorly by the establishment, by the parents. They're paid poorly that it's almost like, oh well, at least we're lucky to have you on some level. So we'll just keep on abusing you, and if you mess up, we're going to give you a stern talking to. But it takes a lot to get let go, because they don't have anyone else to go fill that role.
Right.
You know,
it's not a competitive job market. You know?
Right. Yeah. But it's just like teachers. It's an extremely important job, and it would be wonderful if it was compensated correctly. If there was more demand to draw more people into the role. I mean, think about how much better a lot of these locations could be if there was an actual standing police presence in order to dissuade spacers and mercenaries or whoever from just kind of doing whatever they want, and the poor people having to protect themselves for the most part.
Right. There's no one for them to, like, when the Freestar Rangers get to the planet, there's pretty much nobody there to intercede with. It's kind of like when the marshals visit the city, they're just going to talk to the sheriff, and the sheriff is just one guy for this whole community. I like personally on my side, in like a work sense, we're having trouble because there are small communities that there are some legal issues in, and there's only one sheriff for a small community. And it's like, I can't guard this 24/7. Like I can't do it because I've got, you know, I can't do overtime. I can do some overtime. I can't there's a system in place for them.
There's just limitations.
There's limitations.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's a lot of what I see. I think, to go back to my main point, I think that there are good intentions, and the Freestar Rangers as a whole, the organization has good intentions. That's why it exists. but they're dealing with a lot of lack of resources, a lot of being stretched too thin, a lot of pressure from the wrong places. There's just a lot of other stuff going on, and that creates a problem.
And so if you're a citizen, you're looking from the outside going, oh, well, these guys, they just come in and they do whatever they want. They don't care. They're not going to fix anything. They're not going to do it. They're not there to help you. They're there to just, come in and mark off the checkbox and move on. Like,
and sometimes they are.
Like, I would imagine that's some public discourse about it. I wish that there was, like, I always wish that if we dug a little deeper, that there would be more on that, that sentiment towards the Freestar Rangers. I think it would be super interesting to learn more about.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on to the question about Sam personally. Do you think, before we get to the dad conversation, do you think he's genuinely a good guy? Or do you think that he kind of, some people like to hold to these moral standards because it makes them feel better about themselves because they can say they believe in something, but when it actually comes down to the way they interact in the world, they don't really actually follow those moral standards. So it's more pomp and circumstance, and it's less of actually living that life. Or do you feel like Sam actually does live up to a lot of the standards that he tries to at least say that he does?
I think that to me, and it's like, from the experience of having a kid, it pulls me back from, like, it reprioritizes things for me, of things that's like, hey, here are things that I care about that I can't control whatsoever, but they are affecting me, but I can't control them. I can have an opinion on that, but I'm not going to spend any of my energy like focusing on that. And I think that was one of the things for the Freestar Rangers with him, is he was like, you know what? I have opinions on this. I have a lot of opinions on this. I think that this should be fixed, but I don't have the time to do that because I have a daughter. And what do I really want to do? I really just want to go explore some planets. And so, like, him taking a step back from that, from the Freestar Rangers, and saying, it's like, okay, I have opinions. I think that this should be changed. I'm not the one to do that right now. I think that's like a normal human thing to do.
It shows a certain level of self-awareness too. Like, to stay in that role and keep beating his head against it whilst trying to balance being a father and the other things that he wants to do with his life wouldn't be fair to the organization. It wouldn't be fair to his daughter. It wouldn't be fair to the other people in his life. So I think you're right. I think that he is self-aware enough to know that his dreams are in exploration. His dreams are not in revising a program of rangers and how they're going to go about their jobs. He knows there's something wrong there, but he's not the right person to do it. Like, I know there's a lot of things that I think could be done better in our political system, but I'm not the right person to run for office. I don't feel like I would be good in that role, but I could tell you, these are my opinions about how things could be improved. That doesn't, like, it doesn't mean I'm a bad person for not stepping into that role. I have to be honest about my own capabilities and my own boundaries. So I think you're right about that. I think that is a thing. So when it comes to him being a dad, bringing her on these explorations, the critiques that Lillian has about her, do you think that those hold up? Do you think that it's a good thing that he has his daughter with her, even in these dangerous situations?
I posed this question because I think it's very interesting of when you jump onto the Constellation market. And so he knows Constellation is like, oh, they're guys that are out there. They're exploring new things and they're going through stuff and they're working, they're not a threat to anyone. No one's threatened by Constellation.
They're not at war with anybody. Nobody's trying to off them. Right. The worst dangers are they land on a planet. They didn't chart it well enough. And something goes wrong with the spaceship. And all of a sudden now they're fighting for their lives until somebody can come pick them up or something. Right.
Right. It's one of the less dangerous groups out there. But unfortunately, when the main character steps into it, when the space explorer, I forgot.
We debated this
when
before.
Jonesy steps into it, it's pretty intense, and there's like multiple versions of different people and everybody's trying to kill each other, and there's a lot of guns flying and there's a lot of different stuff. And then I think that sometimes in a moment you get kind of like you get a little shocked about it and you're like, oh well, it's still fine, it's fine. oh, it's fine. And then eventually, it rains and there's a flood event and you're like, water's not going to get in. Oh, there's a little water here. It's fine. And then there's like a tipping point, a triple point where it's like, okay, yeah, the basement's flooded and we're fucked. Like there is that point, I think. And I think that Sam Coe does not understand that they got past that point.
Right.
Once they started getting people like
Starborn chasing them down, like killing people. Yeah, that all of a sudden.
Once a member of Constellation dies,
right,
you reel those people back in. Just have them stay at the the base or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't take them along with you all these different places.
Yeah, we've crossed a boundary. Okay, now our lives are at risk. Maybe we do something else. I think for me. And I can only speak from my own perspective. I have to be honest about my own limitations. If I was part of Constellation, and I was Sam, this new person shows up, they start exploring and bring in things that we haven't really explored too much yet, and all of a sudden things become more dangerous. Somebody dies. I think that's probably the point as a father where I go, okay, I wish you all the best, but I'm going to go do something else. I need to at least take a step back for a while until things calm down to take care of my family in order to make sure that they're safe. Good luck. like, how do you feel about that?
I think that's the move because I think like he is the only one there that has a dependent,
Yeah.
Like he is the only one. The rest of them are like, oh, I'm, my mom and dad are still alive, but really I don't have anybody, or they're, excommunicated from something, or like all their family is dead and they're just there.
Or they're in a weird marriage, or like there's a few other things, but yeah, I don't think anyone else has kids, or at least not child, like young age children.
Right. And I'm not counting Sarah because Sarah gets a kid at some point, but it's a half kid. It's a kid. She gets Tarzan at some point. She literally gets Space Tarzan and has to George of the Jungle him back to the universe. But this is a dependent of Sam's. I agree. I think that there is a point where it's like, okay, we start getting violent up in here, and I'm not taking Cora with us on the ship to go to the place where the hunter and the the other person, the emissary, are. I'm not taking her there. No way, no Jose.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the superhero thing, right? Like when somebody's coming after you, it's easier to hurt the people you love than it is to hurt you because you're a freaking superhero. I'm not saying Sam's a superhero, but in the case of, let's say there's actually this active group that are out to stop them because they don't know who these star people are, right? You would think about, okay, who are my loved ones and how do I keep them safe? Because if they can't get to me, maybe they're going to go after her, and I need to be careful about that, right? Like that just becomes an obvious thing where you just have to start being careful about the people you love. Or if the mafia comes after you, it's like any of that kind of stuff, right? Like that's where you are weakest and where they can hurt you the most. And the people you love. So there's that side of it. But then when it comes to the Unity and actually jumping into the Unity, this is one of the things a lot of people debate. Sam's gung-ho. He's like, all right, we're going to go in. Cora's going to go in too. And like you even can have a conversation with him where basically, I don't remember the specific dialogue, but basically you're like, are you sure you want to do that? You may not end up at the same place together. In fact, we probably won't. She's still young. Do you think that's the right decision for her? And she's like, yes.
Yeah, no, bad dad. No.
I mean, it is a once. Okay, so let me play devil's advocate. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. He'll never get this opportunity ever again. Sometimes you just have to sacrifice things that you want for your kids.
If LSD was a once in a lifetime opportunity and you're offering it to a kid, my advice to the kid is going to be no.
Right. So, okay. So the options then are he and Cora both go in, which is what ends up happening. Spoilers, I guess. He decides, nope, we're not going to do it. I need to stay here with my daughter. or he goes in by himself. I mean, I guess the other option would be she goes in and he stays. I don't think that's going to happen. But the other option for him would be like he sets her up with her mom or some other family to take care of her. Sorry, Cora, gotta go, and goes in. That almost feels worse on some level, like he's just abandoning her. But in both cases, he's functionally abandoning her into the multiverse if they both go in.
If you listen to some of like the prologue stuff of like your whatever your romantic interest is, and I'm trying to really rag my brain for that memory, they talk about when you go into the Unity, they're like, oh, I need to stay back and I need to do some stuff. And then they wait like, 3 or 4 years. And they're like, all right, tick tock, I'm going in. I'm jumping into the big starry pool. And they go. But there's no explanation. Like, I feel like that maybe they should at least age Cora up to 18 or, whenever, where it's like, like there needs to be, you need to have a license in order to operate the Unity. Right. I feel like at this point,
right. If you can't fly your own starship, then you definitely shouldn't be going through the Unity.
Right. And so I don't think we can just like check. I feel like there's an age of consent for the Unity. This is the thing. Here we are. And we're now establishing that there should be an age of consent for the Unity.
Yeah.
But it's part of the ending is the emissary. If you side with the emissary, they're controlling who and who does not go in through the Unity. They are like, okay, we got to train people for this. We got to get them ready. We got to see if they're absolutely 100% ready. And so when you leave or you choose the emissary to kind of leave behind, there are the ones in that universe that are controlling who goes in and who goes out. So like that's a piece of it too, of like, maybe I could see that connection if you choose the emissary ending. If you don't choose the emissary ending and you choose either, whatever, the hunter, or you do full yes man, and you just, kill them both and rock on in there. Mm-hmm. Like it's open to whoever, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. But it still seems like it's a bad idea for her.
Yeah. It's not the smart decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people agree with that. I mean, at least that's the sentiment I've seen. It's just like a lot of like, especially early on, people were like, are you kidding? Sam, what? He lets Cora go with him? Like, how, what? Like,
Cora can't drink alcohol.
Right. So from a meta perspective, as the writers, why do you think they went with that decision?
That's a really good question.
Because they could have written it however they wanted. Like maybe you say, all right, Sam, like, let's go. And he's like, all right, well, I got Cora here still, so I'm going to have to pass. Or at least hopefully this is an option later, once she's grown up. But I don't know.
That's a good question. Maybe, and part of it ties into it. I don't know if you were going to talk about part of it ties into the different universes you get. The options available where like the one I think that most people have gotten, I haven't gotten it yet, but a lot of people have gotten, where you go back to the lodge and everyone is dead. And there is a strike team there to kill you, and it's being led by Cora. And Cora's like, you discovered the Unity and you had me and my father go through it and you killed my dad, and I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah. So maybe that was the motivation, is like, we can have some really cool variations of the way things play out, because it just doesn't like, and I get it. Like not every character is perfect. Some characters are going to make, it makes sense for characters to have like key flaws, and maybe Sam's key flaw is similar to Lillian. Maybe they share this idea that their goals are detrimental to, or go against their same goals of being a good parent.
Right. And when I think about this more, I think this is the first kid that Bethesda has allowed us to kill.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Like in all intents and purposes, this is the first one.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could say at some point she goes through Unity and she probably dies wherever she ends up, because she's a kid out in some galaxy, multiverse, whatever. But I guess you don't.
Well, when
really
you go
know.
through the Unity, you cease to exist in the current universe you're in, and I don't know what else death is other than ceasing to exist in the current universe you're in.
Right. It's this weird gray area of like, okay, but your consciousness goes on somehow. Is that really who you are? Yeah. It ends. It like becomes very existential. Yeah. But we can talk more about that later. Any other questions about Sam? Any other thoughts? Because I think those are the big ones.
No, I mean, he's a really interesting character. I think that he adds a lot of flavor to the world. But really, all in all, he's still a killer of a child.
No. All right. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another episode. You got anything else going on you want to share?
Rad Rolls is currently happening. We're going to be, I've got I think another episode this week, and then there's a small hiatus.
Taking a break.
But then we'll be back on it. It'll just be back on it. That's what happens when everybody takes a vacation at once. When everybody takes a vacation at once, week after week, and you've got a team of a bunch of people, then it's like nothing gets done. It's part of it. It's life.
Funny how that works. Yeah. Yep. Well, thanks for being here. And chat, thank you for joining us for the live stream. I'll be back next week as well, but I'm not taking a break from any of my other shows. I've got a bunch of other shows: the Fallout Lorecast, Elder Scrolls Lorecast, the Lord of the Rings Lorecast, and the Mass Effect Lorecast. And there's a bunch of stuff going on with Fallout, with the TV show, and the reissue of a bunch of games in a big old pack with a little, mini nuke or whatever that thing is, and maybe some updates. Bethesda seems to be doing some behind the scenes updating on Steam for like New Vegas. Like maybe they're working on a patch to kind of bring it up, make it work better on modern systems, which would be wonderful, because 3 in New Vegas crash a lot. There's, I know they're still working on the update to Fallout 4. There's a bunch of new mods coming out. So there's all sorts of Fallout stuff. So if you're taking a break from Starfield and you're jumping back into Fallout, go check that stuff out. Heck, I've even been posting more video versions of some of the episodes that have been kind of handpicked to work for video on the Fallout Lorecast YouTube channel. So go check those out. They're doing amazing. We just launched we dropped a video like 2 days ago. It's up to like 17,000 views. So that channel's doing great. So lots of fun stuff for you to check out. Head over to robotsradio.net for a bunch of links, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe out there.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this show.
Did you know that parodies are copyright protected?
Tell a friend and review
on iTunes
or other services. Dave and Tom excited for Starfield. Let's all speculate and wear no shoes.
Hey, why aren't we wearing any shoes?
Because shoes rhymes with iTunes, and that's the best I could think of.